Welcome to the SPS Digital Learning Hour.
Brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mike Thomas.
And I'm Suzanne Zargis.
We're coming to you from a conference room in Central Office, bringing you the latest news in the Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the classroom.
We'll also inform you of the latest updates, practices, and news as it pertains to our district. Whether you are new to using technology in the classroom or are a seasoned vet, we are here to help.
Thanks for joining us today. We are very excited to be with you. I'm going to start off with, in case you missed it, this week's blog post is up, and it's all about the data warehouse. And if you have tunnel vision like I do, when I was teaching, I had no idea what it was. I never clicked on the tile on my SPS. But now that I'm in this position, and I've seen how valuable that can be to a teacher to be able to see your data across everything. It's a great tool. Go check out the blog. It explains how to use it, how to access it, and if you need more help in getting data, and how to email the data warehouse team. It's got a lot to offer. It's a great tool that I think if I were teaching now, I would definitely be taking advantage of. So check it out.
In case you missed it, Dino is a great tool available to teachers that allows you to monitor your students while they work online. If you haven't tried it out yet, the instructions are on MikeSPS, and you can always email DLA support with questions.
In case you missed it, an announcement went out on MikeSPS all about weather closings and delays. If you're not sure what you should be doing on those days, it is a great little primer that tells you exactly who gets to do what for what role in regards to weather and delays, but always be safe when you're driving in.
That's it for In Case You Missed It. Coming up next, Hot Takes.
This week for Hot Takes, Suzanne, I read an article that made me so happy. We love movies at our house. We have movie night at our house, and one of the popular movies is anything that starts with the word Pixar.
I knew you were going to say that, Mike, because you have something special from your high school that has to do with Pixar, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, we had a computer lab. This was back a long time ago now, but Pixar actually brought A Bug's Life out to our computer lab. We had the same computers that made Titanic, that made A Bug's Life and Toy Story. We had those same computers, and they screened parts of the film for us at our school. So Pixar holds a dear place in my heart. Plus, Suzanne, those movies are amazing.
They are amazing. I agree.
But what's great about this article, and why we're talking about Pixar to start with, is that there's a thing on Khan Academy called Pixar in a Box. So I got this article from Mindshift. It's, again, my favorite educational website, big idea website, education disruption website, whatever you want to call it. So the article is called Pixar in a Box Teaches Math Through Real Animation Challenges. The moment I started reading this, Suzanne, I'm like, this is project-based learning. This is project-based learning. And it's Pixar. It made me so happy.
That's so funny, Mike. I love that you had that reaction, and obviously so much enthusiasm when it comes to Pixar and what it can do in the classroom. My first reaction in reading this article was, it's math and art. It's math and art. I love math, but I know a lot of people don't. So to combine art and math, I think we'll get a lot more people enthusiastic about the subject I love.
What was really great about this is the article talks about one of the senior scientists. I love that at Pixar they're called senior scientists, by the way. Tony DeRose was faced with a problem that animators had never solved at that time, which was how to make a hand of an old man look lifelike. Now, we look at our hands and we see, oh, that's what our hands are. When we watch a movie, it's normally regular people. When it was 2D animation, this would be back with The Lion King, The Little Mermaid. All that stuff was hand-drawn. There was not as much mathematics per se in it that would be obvious. When it comes to computer animation, though, it's all mathematics. which I think is really great. And that's what the article starts to talk about is they can make a lifelike sculpture, but then they had to figure out how to take that and put it into 3D. And therein lies your project-based learning. Project-based learning is always, to me, from what I can tell, is always based upon solving a real-world problem. That's project-based learning at its core and at its best, is doing that. And for them, this was a real-life problem. He actually won a Scientific and Technical Academy Award in 2006 for the work that he was doing, which is pretty cool. What's great is Khan Academy, as you all know, has a plethora of math education and science education that is free, that is designed to help students gain a better understanding of how things work and how to do and perform certain objectives. It was really cool, Suzanne, to see how Pixar was like, we want to teach this to people. Khan Academy was like, we teach these things already. And like how they started to like mesh it together.
Right. And one thing that Khan Academy had noted was that even with all of the videos that they have explaining various curriculum topics, students weren't watching the whole video. They would get halfway through and say, all right, that's enough for me. It wasn't interesting enough to hold their attention for the entire lesson. So Khan Academy wanted to find a way to get them to watch the whole lesson and to be more engaged. And that's when Pixar came in.
Yeah, and so once they created these video lessons, Pixar in a Box, you can actually go there now. And I think this article might be referencing something a little bit older, because last time I looked, they actually had like how to create like a Pixar story, like through Pixar in a Box, along with some of the other things they talk about in the article, to get people excited and to understand exactly what goes into those movies. Like, this is a great primer for that.
Right. And to get back to what you were saying about project-based learning and relating a lesson to real life, one of the lessons they talk about had to do with weighted averages in algebra. I mean, that was such a fantastic example, because if I told my daughter when she was in high school, oh, okay, this week we're learning about weighted averages, and I want you to do wellness algebra course, I'm sure I would get the eye roll. But if I showed her this lesson where they had a concrete example that they had to do with Pixar, enthusiasm would go up 1,000%.
Yeah, I remember in high school, in algebra class specifically, being like, when am I ever going to use this in real life? And that is one of the things that we hear students say all the time.
Exactly.
I started hearing that in 5th grade when I was teaching. It's like, why do I need to know how to do division? My calculator will do it for me. Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't understand like the bigger picture of like, this is why we do these things, not so we know how to do something rotely. It's to like understand and be able to problem solve larger concepts.
Exactly. The other important piece that I found in this article was that it's not something that teachers would use every day. It has some lessons that are aligned to the Common Core, but not all of them. But it's definitely something that they could assign as homework and then dive deeper during the class day. Right.
And I think one of the key components to Common Core in general is the ability to problem solve. And that's where you could get away with saying like, yes, they're learning how to do math. It might not be at a grade level. One of the things they note is many of the lessons can be used throughout various grade levels. It focuses in on problem solving and creative thinking, which is very hard to think about when it comes to math, because we don't think of math as creative at all. Like, it's a lot of times we get in our heads like math is that rote thing that you do. I think of Good Will Hunting and that giant chalkboard with a giant problem. Like, that's what I think of mathematics. I don't necessarily think that's creative. I mean, it is creative. For the most of us, we see that and we're like, oh, that's just an equation. Like, we don't see the bigger picture. And that's what I love about this Pixar in a Box is like, it takes you to the bigger picture of what mathematics can do.
Exactly. It connects the math with the art. And one of the first things I think about with that is the great collaboration that can take place with something like this. You've got all of your students who are maybe stereotypically identified as artists, and then you have your group of students who are the math geeks. And this totally brings those two worlds together.
I think Pixar has made a point of that. Like, they're computer scientists. When they go out and are working on a film like Finding Nemo or The Incredibles, or I believe his first thing was Jerry's Game, which was a short that they made like early on in Pixar's history. That would be the game with the old guy playing chess against himself, for those who have never seen it before. I think it's an extra on one of the first Toy Story movies. Or you could find out Pixar has a collection of all their shorts that you could find it on too. They make their directors, their writers, their computer scientists, they all have to have an understanding of what's going on. So like when they were doing The Incredibles, they studied superheroes and like how they work. When they were doing Finding Nemo, they went to Australia, went diving with their video cameras so that they could take it, because not everybody in the company can do it that's working on the project, but they take some of the key people, have them go out, learn so that they can turn around and teach everybody else. And Pixar has like their own Pixar University where they encourage their employees to continue learning. And again, this is part of that continued learning is exactly what's going on with this Pixar in a Box stuff, is that now they're taking the things that they're learning and distilling it down so that the average person who is not a computer scientist can understand it. And they can see how it's important. And they talk about the meshing of art and technology. I think that phrase comes up like 2 or 3 times in this article.
Yes, it definitely does. The other piece that you alluded to there is that the videos show the people behind the careers, behind the scenes, and show students careers that they never knew about, that they never would have even considered. And I think that's just such an important piece for our students to be exposed to the possibilities in this world, and that they may be studying math in the classroom, but to know that they can turn that around and work for Pixar in this scenario, I would think they would be so excited about that.
Yeah, and I can think of like all those students who I always had doodling and drawing. I'm like, that's fantastic. I'm like, we need to focus on the math part now. They really would thrive with things like this. And then I remember students when we did what was it? It was coordinate grids and plotting points. And then, because one of the things that I like to do is give kind of like the connect the dot coordinate grid so that it ends up being like a 3D picture. And the students who really thrived with that, this is what they need to see why they're learning math.
Exactly. Because
not only would this be at Pixar, but the same with DreamWorks or any other animation studio across the world. Like they could get a job making movies, making characters, taking their drawings and bringing them to life, essentially. So
right, that real world connection is so critical. And to get off a little bit, but not too much, it reminds me of a course that I took at Holy Cross College in Worcester, and it was all about teaching math. But the professor was just phenomenal, and she told story after story about real life scenarios that she had been hired for because she was such an incredible mathematician. And one of them required her to go out to the Grand Canyon and measure the flow of the river because a company needed something done, and they needed all these really technical calculations to get the job done right. So just another example of, mathematicians don't necessarily always have to sit in a little cubicle with no windows. They can be out in the real world doing important things.
I don't remember if this article touches upon this, but a lot of jobs that mathematicians, those who would go through college, getting their master's degree in math, a lot of the jobs, there's things that are automated now where they don't have to do. And so that's where, like, because of their knowledge, they could do exactly what you were talking about, go out to the Grand Canyon and calculate the flow of the water or calculate whatever. They could go to Pixar or DreamWorks and they could start creating 3D characters and renderings to help along with the storytellers. That just kind of working hand in hand. Math gets a bad rap a lot.
It does.
With this story, like really focusing in on like what Pixar is doing, like it allows, I think you mentioned it before, but it's worth mentioning again, it allows people to like see the behind the scenes stuff that Pixar is doing. that they have the actual scientists talking. They have the actual scientists doing the teaching. Because with Khan Academy, it's all Sal for the most part. I don't think I've ever watched a video that it wasn't him. But here, these are experts in their fields teaching you how to do something that you might learn in middle school and high school math that turns around and applies to what they are doing. And so it kind of helps you getting that, especially the career part. Because I would be willing to bet with Pixar and the way that they do things, they would be open to hiring people who are excellent mathematicians, but maybe did not go to a 4-year college. Maybe they only went to a 2-year college. Or maybe they'll hire them right out of high school because of their skills that they can develop in school. And like these are some, so you can see exactly what they're doing, which is really cool. And like you said, these videos are not all Common Core, but they do have lesson plans and lesson guides with them, which is really great. As for our teachers who like to plan things, having those guides are very helpful.
Mike, I'd love to know, with our listeners out there, who is aware of this? Who knows about Pixar in the Box and who has used Khan Academy? And what do they think about the integration of art and technology? I'd love to see what our students are already doing.
Yeah, let us know. Leave us messages on Yammer or email us at DLA support. Send us tweets, snail mail. I would say phone calls, but I don't like talking on the phone that much, actually, because my phone, it goes as I'm talking, so it's hard. But you can send me messages any other way.
I heard a rumor that will be fixed soon, though.
That would be nice. It would be great to hear what people are doing, in all seriousness.
And I do want to reiterate one point. You already made this, but I want to reiterate it, that the lessons are not grade specific. So they're for 4th grade through high school, but find a lesson that's right for your students, and it may be, above or below the actual grade that they're in. So it would be just phenomenal to see what's possible for the students to achieve viewing these lessons.
Yeah. I like how they end the article talking about Cruz, who is Britt Cruz, who is a content producer at Khan Academy. One of the things he mentions and he wraps up the article with is, instead, these videos are meant to delight, to ask people to be creators as well as learners, to push users to finish online lessons. Cruz says he hopes teachers might consider assigning the video lessons at home so class time can be used for hands-on activities and a deeper dive. I honestly think you don't actually start learning until that stage. I'm a huge proponent of hands-on learning, which that's a great reason why we have Brightspace.
There you go.
So you can assign things, they can watch it at home and then come back in. So again, this was Pixar in a Box. Pixar in a Box teaches math through real animation challenges. You should check it out. The links will be to Khan Academy, to Pixar in a Box, and to this article will all be in our show notes. Coming up next, our interview with Ron Rue from Kylie. So this week we interviewed Ron Rue from Kylie. He is currently a master teacher through the ZEP schools at Kylie. There's a lot of great things that he's doing, so let's listen in.
Ron Rue. I started in Springfield at Public Day Middle around 2008. From there, I became an ILS at Kylie around 2012-13, and then I've recently moved into a master teacher position with the Empowerment Zone at Kylie.
Sounds like you've gone from Public Day. Was that also the middle school, or?
That was the Safe School or Public Day Middle, but it was the middle school that was over in Six Corners.
So when you were teaching, what was it like using technology in the classroom?
My first experience with technology, I knew I wanted to project, and there weren't any resources, so I found a TV, and for $12 I bought some kind of converter that allowed me to project onto a TV. Like my screen became a TV screen, and that was my first experience with technology.
Wow. So now taking that into account and being an ILS here at Kylie, where there's a lot more technology, What are some of the things that you've done that have gone from that first setting up to project on a TV to where you are now?
I think where we are now as a district it's a lot about experimentation, which can be scary. And I think it forces us to rely on other experts. So some things that I've experimented with, we had spent money on Mimeo devices. So we had Mimeo Vote, Mimeo Teach, which is sort of like a low-grade smartboard, and things of that nature. So I've experimented with a lot of those. Currently, I use a Mimeo camera in my room to project student work. And I also have a projector. I've tried smartboards, not really a fan, it's just not my style. I still like to use a whiteboard marker with projected screen. And the most recently, we've jumped on the OneNote bandwagon, and today, ironically, it's sort of, I guess, conveniently, it was the first day I tried OneNote with my students and kind of stumbled through that today.
Wow, that's awesome. So going from projecting onto a TV to being able to project on walls and using the whiteboards, that's quite a jump that you've made over time. So let's talk about this OneNote. So you guys started using it as a staff first before you jumped in with students, or did you jump in staff and students at the same time? Or
we heard about OneNote through Forest Park, working with Sarah Macon and Kim O'Grady over there, and it was a large part of their practice. And we started experimenting with it over the summer, really just as like a common area for dumping files. And as we became more comfortable, we saw its value to be used in PLCs. A few of our teachers saw its value in the classroom, and one started with the student notebooks. So she spent the past month really figuring out the quirks, and that has now led to a few other teachers, including me, jumping into that. As far as use of PLCs, it's really allowed us to differentiate, which is sort of like what we've always struggled with. But we were able to create a PLC where we had different centers for things like threshold, engaging the disengaged, and also people who wanted to experiment with OneNote. And we launched it with the teachers just so they could get the experience. We audio recorded teachers talking about those specific centers because they were the experts. They talked about what they thought it looked like, why they thought it was important, and how they got better at it. And we had a reflection area within the OneNote for teachers to reflect on that. And then we've taken that information, we were able to analyze it since it was all right there in front of us, not post-it notes or anything crazy. And we were able to snip it, dump it all together, look at some patterns, and then create a second PLC that we're doing tomorrow, again, within OneNote. And now we realize that it was two pathways that teachers were interested in, and we're giving them a chance for a deeper dive. It's seamless.
Yeah, OneNote is fantastic. I know we use it in our offices all the time, and we've been doing a lot of trainings lately. In fact, this week I know I have going to one of the schools and doing 3 days of training during PLC times to teach teachers how to use the class notebook part. So that is pretty exciting. So as an ILS, I imagine you get to get into the classrooms a lot.
I also have my own class that I teach.
What are some of the things that you've seen your teachers doing with in regards to technology?
We have all different varieties here at Kylie. There's about 10 teachers who use Mimeo Vote regularly. They like that they can pull up a test question, snip it, and then create a multiple choice formative assessment. And it really just works on the fly. We've even had teachers use it along with note taking, that when they finished taking notes for a spot, they would click a button, and then that meant they were done, and students were getting grades for how quickly they were taking notes as well. We have smart boards that are fully functioning in probably 80% of the building, and about half our teachers use them as interactive devices. I believe there's a way to project in every single classroom, and there's probably 2 teachers that don't project on a regular basis. Everyone is using projection in some way. We have teachers using Mimeo cameras. We now have laptop carts that are 2-to-1. We had about 10 teachers jump into Brightspace and use that on a regular basis. And yeah, I guess that's sort of like an overview, but there's things I'm leaving out.
Yeah. In thinking about the rest of the school year and preparing your students and the students that you work with via being an ILS, what are some technology skills that you're really honing in on this year?
I feel like where we went wrong in the past few years is really breaking down the skills into specific categories like radial dots and things of that nature. The kids, they learn quickly if given the right environment. And I started thinking a lot about how they learn video games. You go onto a game, there's one level that's like a level where they just teach you the controls, and it's low stakes, and then you feel accomplished. You actually score points from it. So I think, I'm not really answering your question, I'm hijacking your question, but to go with a point, but I think the more that we just give kids opportunities to play in a very structured environment, I think the better off we are. And I guess to give an example of that is, today I launched OneNote, and I gave the students the basic rundown of content library, where I used the example of, like, can you write in the books in the library? No, just like in the content library. And the collaboration, what does that mean? It means we work together. Great. I gave them some warnings about how I can tell everything that everyone writes. So that preemptive pre-teach really set the expectation. And then I made some fun activities. I put an About Myself PowerPoint up there, and I made one for myself. And that was one choice. And the other choice was to download a PDF that we created. It was a story about our principal, Mr. Sutton. And they had to pick a lie, they had to pick something interesting, and use the annotating functions of highlight and strikeout. And it was low stakes, but I told them, I need to see this done on your computer for a 100% quiz grade, and it's all or none. And that just got students focused. And when they were finished, everyone loves making PowerPoints, especially about yourself. And that allowed me to differentiate my instruction. I actually had 8 students who had trouble. I said, meet me over on the side. We're just going to fix it together. And I knew everyone else was engaged, earning a grade, and I could really help these 8 kids out.
That's awesome. I imagine with a school like yours, just like every other school in the district, you get a lot of new teachers. What is some of the advice that you have given them this past year or in past years about using technology in the classroom?
To coin a phrase, zone of proximal development. We get people from all areas, and if it means, let's use a projector. And one of the easiest entry points was showing, this is PowerPoint, this is the snip function. You're going to make a PowerPoint just snipping from your lesson plans. That's it. And this way, the teacher is spending less time writing on a whiteboard. They're allowed to look at the students, and then having pick a student to run the PowerPoint for you. So it's sort of like finding those entry points for them. They're coming from all different levels of technology ability, but I think the other thing is use the skills of those around you. It's not my job to teach or train. It is my job to find the expert and facilitate a connection. If that means sit in a new teacher's classroom and find an opportunity and then talk with them and say, here are 3 choices that I think will make your life better. Which are you interested in? And then from there, say, let's go watch this teacher tomorrow, and then you tell me what you like and don't like. And really letting them take the lead. So we've had our least success has come from overall trainings of something. Our best success has been last year we tried with Brightspace. We wanted everyone to just touch it. So we put a menu. We said at the bare minimum, we want you to go on Brightspace, and we had one discussion board, and your job was to watch a YouTube video, buy in a discussion board. The next level up was to create a news feed, and then the next level up from that was something like create a club. And everyone struggled at their different levels, but everyone had some experience with it by the end. And it wasn't we didn't have a lofty goal. We just said we want everyone to just taste it. And that was our best outcome.
Well, thank you for your time. I know that we're in the middle of the school day and it's always very busy. So I just want to leave this opportunity for you to tell our listeners anything else that you want.
Any challenge that you encounter, be it with technology or anything in this district, I find do it with a smile and genuine humor. I think sometimes we confuse humor with sarcasm. I think if we just approach, today, my lesson could have blown up. It kind of did blow up. And I just said, guys, we're going to work it out together. And we all felt more successful for it.
So Suzanne, what do you think?
Another great interview, Mike. Love it. Again, I can't say enough about our teachers and the enthusiasm that just comes through with every interview. I love what they're doing with the technology that they have, and I love that he is open to experimentation.
Clearly, I mean, he did start by figuring out how to hook his computer up to a TV on his own. So
yes.
Clearly he's very for experimentation, which is great because that kind of thing bleeds into the school and into other teachers being willing to try things.
Exactly. He had that vision. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew that it was a little bit scary at the time, but he did it. And then little by little, everyone followed his path.
So what I really liked is that he was very open about this is the things that we realize that we need to improve upon. And so we're taking steps now to do that. And then including like using OneNote and like where they learned it from. And so then they tried it over the summer and now they're doing it with their staff and some of their staff is doing it with the students and just kind of how like because someone was willing to step forward and be first, the rest of the staff is trying things.
Right. And a great point that he made was the fact that teachers need to rely on other experts, that they don't need to feel that they need to learn everything all by themselves or that there's going to be one person only in their school that will be able to teach them. There's going to be multiple people and you need to reach out and expand that network that you have in your mind of people who can teach you about technology.
One of the things that he said that he likes to do with teachers, instead of doing like the mass training of here all 50 teachers are sitting in the cafeteria learning how to do something, he's taking that teacher, kind of observing them, giving them a few options of like, what do you want to try first, basically? And then when they answer, he's like, all right, let's go check out this teacher who is already doing that. And then you can see, and then we can talk about what you like, what you don't like. Like, to me, it really seems like there's a real spirit of collaboration in that school.
Absolutely.
And a real spirit of wanting to help each other improve.
And that's the key right there, especially when it comes to technology, because everyone's going to be scared of something. You have to work together and learn from your peers. The other piece I thought, the other point he made that I thought was excellent was how he realized watching students play video games, not his students, maybe his kids, but when he thought about how they learned to play a video game and how those skills were broken down, and then he translated that to the training he does within the school. So first, you need to understand the basic controls. I think that's something that many times we forget about because it may be automatic to us, but it's not automatic to everybody else. So right. I thought that was a great point he made.
Yeah, and even like it's all like when he was talking about that in my head, I'm like, game-based learning, game-based learning. That's what I'm hearing. But it's so true. Like getting people's feet wet. Like they're not going to try OneNote. They're not going to try Brightspace without a purpose attached to it and without a risk-free environment attached to it. Because if they think they're going to break something, they're going to try to not break something, which means that they're not going to try. Once they hit a wall, they'll stop. And so I like that approach to it. Is like last year, I think what he had talked about was for Brightspace, they had 3 levels of things. Like for people who have never touched it, this is what you need to do. For people who kind of know what they're doing, this is what you need to do. For those people who think that they're experts, this is what you need to do. And then even within that, he allowed, like people were allowed to just continue moving up as they were trying things.
Exactly. As he put it, they were given opportunities to play in a structured environment. That's the key. Mm-hmm. You have to have time to play, but as you said, you need to have a goal and a focus.
Yeah.
I also absolutely loved the way he summed it all up in that you need to face any challenge with a smile and humor.
Not sarcasm.
Exactly.
So it was a great interview, Ron. We thank you for the time that you allowed us to come out to your school and interview you. So for this week's question of the month, for the month of November, we want to hear about how you're using technology in your classroom. In specific, we want to hear about lessons that you've done in the past without using technology and how you've added technology to it. It falls in line with the SAMR model, so if you've never used technology in the lesson prior and you do this time, tell us about it. If you used at the S level and you swung it all the way up to the R level, Tell us about it. We want to hear how you're using technology in your lessons, especially from the viewpoint of never using it in the first place. So to leave us those messages, go on Yammer. We have a podcast group set up for you that you could sign up into. You could also leave it on the main page. The questions are always posted on the main Yammer page, the All Company. You could also email us at dlasupport@springfieldpublicschools.com. You could send us tweets. You can mail us, however you want to get it to us. If you know someone who will deliver it on a horse, I would totally take a picture of that and put it up on Yammer. That's it for this week. I'm Mike Thomas.
I'm Suzanne Zargis.
And we'll see you next week.